Hello and welcome to MR.Game Review Show. Don't forget to subscribe the channel, hit the like button and put a comment below the video. Thank you so much. The Dick Tracy video game for the Sega Mega Drive, also known as the Sega Genesis in North America, is a side-scrolling action game released in 1991. Developed and published by Sega, the game is based on the iconic comic strip character Detective Dick Tracy, who was popularized in the 1930s. Here's a detailed review. Gameplay. The game is a combination of side-scrolling action and shooting mechanics where you control Dick Tracy as he takes on various criminal gang members. The gameplay is unique for its time because it allows players to shoot enemies in both the foreground directly in front of Tracy and the background in distant windows or platforms, adding a layer of depth to the traditional side-scrolling genre. Side-scrolling action, Dick Tracy walks through different stages, dealing with enemies using his fists, a revolver for close-range attacks, and a Tommy gun for shooting enemies in the background. Health system. The game has a health system represented by hats, which decrease as Tracy takes damage. Once all hats are lost, the player loses a life. Difficulty. The game is known for its high difficulty level, with enemies that can be tricky to manage due to the dual-layer shooting mechanic. It requires quick reflexes and a strategic approach to deal with threats from different directions. For a game released in 1991, the graphics are fairly decent. The character sprites are well designed, and the environments capture the noir atmosphere of the Dick Tracy comics with a good use of dark colors and shadows. The soundtrack is a mix of jazzy, noir-inspired tunes that fit the detective theme well. The sound effects, while somewhat repetitive, are serviceable and help to immerse the player in the action. The game loosely follows the plot of the 1990 Dick Tracy movie, though it doesn't dive deeply into the story. The focus is more on the action and gameplay rather than narrative depth. However, the game's atmosphere is strongly tied to the noir detective theme, with levels that are designed to reflect the gritty, crime-ridden streets of the 1930s. The controls can be a bit stiff, which might frustrate some players, especially given the game's difficulty. Aiming at background enemies while avoiding foreground threats requires precision, which the control scheme doesn't always facilitate smoothly, given the game's challenging nature. It might appeal to players who enjoy difficult action games and mastering them through repeated playthroughs. However, for others, the frustration factor might limit its replayability. The game designer for the Dick Tracy video game on the Sega Mega Drive was Nobuya Nakazato. He is known for his work on various action games during his time at Sega. Nakazato played a significant role in the development of Dick Tracy, contributing to its unique gameplay mechanics and design elements that set it apart from other side-scrolling action games of the time. The reactions to the Dick Tracy game on the Sega Mega Drive Genesis varied between gamers in the United States and Japan, reflecting different gaming cultures and expectations. Dick Tracy is a well-known character in American pop culture, especially following the release of the 1990 film starring Warren Beatty. This familiarity likely led to higher expectations and a more critical reception of the game in the US. Gamers had mixed reactions to the game. Some appreciated the unique gameplay mechanics, particularly the ability to shoot in both the foreground and background. However, many found the game frustrating due to its high difficulty level, stiff controls, and repetitive nature. The game was often seen as a challenging but flawed title that didn't quite live up to the potential of the Dick Tracy license. Over time, the game has gained a bit of a cult following among retro gaming enthusiasts in the US, who appreciate its uniqueness and challenge, even if it wasn't universally loved upon release. In Japan, Dick Tracy wasn't as iconic a figure as he was in the US, which likely affected the game's reception. Without the same level of cultural recognition, Japanese gamers may have judged the game more on its gameplay and design than its connection to a popular character. Japanese gamers are often more focused on gameplay mechanics and design innovation. While the dual-layer shooting mechanic might have intrigued some players, the overall response was generally lukewarm. The game's difficulty and somewhat clunky controls were likely criticized, as Japanese gamers tend to favor smooth, polished gameplay experiences. Like in the US, the game didn't become a major hit in Japan, but found a niche audience among players who enjoyed challenging action games. However, it was more of an obscure title in Japan due to the lack of a strong connection to the character. In summary, while both regions had their criticisms, the American audience's familiarity with Dick Tracy shaped their reaction to the game, whereas Japanese gamers judged it more as a standalone title without the added cultural context.